Welcome to Testing with RK. In this session we are going to discuss static and non-static. For the purpose of this demonstration we will go back to our previous example. With static and non-static today we will be discussing variables and methods. Now before we get into the actual coding, let's try to understand this with the help of an example. In our example we have a class called car and we have been creating an objects of various make and model. We know that to create the object we need to use a keyword called new. Every time it creates an object we can see that it creates its own version of its variables make, model, engine size and type, and all the objects have a copy of themselves. So if I was to change the make model of this particular object, it will not affect any of these objects. But what if we were to have a variable which is a common among all of them? So for example, if I see Volvo, Mazda, BMW, Audi, they all are car, their category is a car. So what if we were to say that we have a variable called car category, and this car category is always car basically, and it remains same for all of these objects. It doesn't have to change. In this instance it would be totally unuseful to have this particular variable in all of these objects because they all are car. So what we can do is we can define this particular car category variable as static. What will happen is that every time we create a new object of this particular class, this car category will only create one single variable in the memory, and all of these objects will have the similar value of the car category called cars. Let's take another example. We have a class called employee and we have 4 different objects. Each object represents an employee in a company. As we can see, the employee has employee ID, first name, last name and the department they work in. But if you notice one thing, for all these 4 employees there's one common thing: they all work for a same company. So what we can do is, in that instance, we can create a variable called company name, and this variable will be static comp name. Okay, so no matter how many objects are created, for the employee class, this particular variable will remain same for all of these employees. Okay, let's try to understand this with the help of a code. Okay, what we are going to do is, in our example of this car, we will, in fact, let's put it horizontal so we can see both. Okay, so in our example what we are going to do is we are going to declare a static variable with public scope. So public static, don't worry about the access modifiers public. We will be covering access modifiers in our next session. So for now it's public static. I will have a string variable and it is called category. I will just put category. Okay, so we have a variable called category. In fact, let me spell it correctly completely so it avoids confusion. We have a variable called category and it is static. It will remain same for all the objects. Okay, to access the categories, the static variables, it will be accessed directly from the class. So what I mean by that is, if I was to say, in this example we will comment that bit and we will create a new example here. So we'll say car Volvo and this specification here, car. Okay, so this will create an object called car. We will create another object, say BMW equals to new car, and I'm just going to copy the stuff I have here. So I'm just going to say BMW X5 3 liter is the thing. It is, I should have just typed simply X5. It is white, okay, and it is SUV. It is 57,000 and 3 liter. Okay, so this will create an object called BMW. We are going to have another object called car Audi equals to new car Audi Q7 black SUV and 55,000 3 liter. I'm not sure about these figures, I'm just making that up. So oops, sorry, mistake. Yeah, so we have got three objects now called Volvo, BMW, Audi. Yeah, so let me comment that. Okay, so I have commented. Okay, so what we have here now is that we have three objects, Volvo, BMW, Audi. When they run, what will they do is they will invoke the parametrized constructor that we have defined in our previous sessions, and it will load all these values into the variables of the object. So from our example, it will load up these particular components of each individual make. What I am going to do is I'm going to access the static variable that we defined. So to access it, remember the car object. So the object that we have created, it cannot access the static variable. I cannot access the static variable. So Volvo dot, I can see the break equal get car specs, set car specs, start, stop, but I cannot get this particular variable called category. So if I remove that bit and save and try that again, I will see the categories appearing. The static variables and methods are only available when you access them directly with the class and not with the object. Okay, so what we are going to do to access it, what we are going to do is car dot category. Now see, I can get straight away category because it's a static and it has to be accessed where the class category equals to car. Okay, and also to print get car spec, what I am going to do is console right line, I'm going to say print the category, and also might put some separator so that we can know, followed by this. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to print the Volvo dot get car specs. We are going to do the same for BMW get car specs, and we are going to do the same with the Audi as well. Okay, get car specs. Okay, remember I have set the value of car category as car currently. What we are going to do is we will put the breakpoint and we will see step by step how control is moving around. Okay, so save, build, and run. Okay, it's compiling. It's here now. In this case, what will happen is I will expand this one and autos. Okay, what I will do is, I've got Volvo, BMW, I don't need this, so delete watch. I'm just going to have these three variables. Okay, now I am also going to add a variable called car dot category. In fact, I wouldn't need it because I can see when I scope into it. Okay, as we can see, the Volvo object has something called static members, BMW has the same thing, static members, and Audi has static members. Now when I scope into it, I can see all three of them has category. Doesn't matter which particular object I am looking at, the moment I change the category, it will be reflected for all of these objects. Now when I do this, I'm here and I move the control and it is invoking the parameterized constructor. It is going to set the value of it. It is going to create that particular object, and now we can see the Volvo value is set. Okay, but when I look at the category, it's still null because nothing has been set. Volvo object has been created, but the category is still null. When I move the controller to the next one, what will happen is I see that static member category has changed to car. Okay, the BMW object category is also changed to car, and the Audi has changed to car as well. So my point is that it doesn't matter which object you're looking at, the moment you change the static variable of a class, it will be affected for all of these objects. As we can see here, the BMW object is still not created, but its category is set as car. Okay, so we are going to create this, and when I look at the print, I can see Volvo S60 black saloon 20,000, so on, BMW car, and so on and so forth. Okay, now let's do one thing. Let's change the car category from here to car 1. Okay, what we are going to do is we are going to have a point here and run it. As we can see, the Volvo object has been created. Okay, the category is still empty for all these variables here. The moment I debug through car category, I see the category as set to car. Now I am printing that particular car spec. I come here, I create the object of BMW, and I am printing the car spec, and I can see from the console that the car spec is set to car. Okay, once I debug through it, I can see the car category now I have changed to car 1, and I can see it has changed for all of the other objects as well. Okay, so static member for BMW's category car 1 and F5. There we go. Okay, so what we have learned so far is that a static variable can only be accessed by the class. It cannot be accessed by any of these objects. Static variables are only created once in the memory, unlike objects. Whenever we create, unlike objects where whenever we use the keyword new, it creates a new object in the memory, but for the static variable it is only created once. Just like static variable, we have something called static methods. What it means is that the static methods, let me show you an example here. So for what we are going to do is that it is a very bad practice to set the value of the variables directly from the class itself. It's a very bad design. We should always have some sort of a method or some mechanism where we are not directly setting the value of variables. So what we are going to do is we are going to define a new method. Okay, public, I am making the method as static, nothing to return, set category. And what I am going to do here is that I am going to take a parameter here, string category, and what I am going to do is I am going to say this dot, oh sorry, my bad, this dot oh, category equal to category. In fact, let me make it simple. Okay, so we are going to use this method to set the value of this category. Okay, the thing about the static methods are, and this can be a little bit confusing, is that static methods can only operate on static variable. Okay, what do I mean by that? The static methods can only change the value of the variables which are static. So in the same method, if I try to do this, I'm going to get an error saying that an object reference is required for non-static field. Basically what it is trying to say is that this particular make variable is a non-static, whereas the method is static. So static methods can only operate on static variables. Okay, so that's the point to remember. Now how we are going to change the method. Remember, we said the static variables and static methods can only be accessed via the class and not by the object. So even if I do this and try to access set category, I won't get the method, whereas car dot, and now I get the method called set category, and I'm going to set the category as car 2. What this is going to do is this is going to set the value of car category of the class to car 2. We will see through this the debug. So the controller comes here, Volvo object has been created, but the value of category is still null for all the objects. What it is going to do here is it is going to come through to this method. The value of category is still null. Cat value is car 2, what we have supplied as an argument. That will change the category value, and now I can see when the controller goes back, the category of all the objects is being set to car 2. Okay, so this is the static method. Okay, so what are the takeaways from here? The takeaways are static and non-static variables. Static variables are only created once in the memory, whereas non-static variables are created as a copy for every object that we instantiate. So for car we have 4 different objects. All these objects are going to have their independent variable, make, model, engine, size, whereas the car category variable is a static. It will be only created once. The static variable can only be the static methods can only consume static variables. So what I mean by that is that static methods that we have created here can only operate on static variable. The moment we try to operate on any of the non-static variable, it will say it is going to give us an error. Okay, so that is going to say reference, but the moment I change this to static, that error is gone. Okay, so that is the 2 takeaways from this session. Static, we will learn the static and non-static are pretty important concepts, and we will see the importance of it when we are building our test automation framework, test automated scripts and everything. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you very much for joining me with this session, and I'll see you in the next session. Thank you.